If your love is never reciprocated, you're not unlovable, you're not broken, you're not too much or not enough. You're stuck in an energetic trap. And here's what nobody tells you: you're the one setting it. Not consciously, not intentionally, but with a precision that would be elegant if it weren't so devastating. Let me paint a picture. You meet someone. Your heart opens. You give everything: your attention, your care, your presence. You show up. You're there. You love them with an intensity that feels real, feels right, feels like this is it. And they don't. They pull back. They're distant. They're unavailable. Or worse, they take everything you give and offer nothing in return. They consume your love like it's ambient background noise, barely registering that you're bleeding yourself dry. So you try harder. You give more. You convince yourself that if you just love them enough, they'll finally see you, finally feel what you feel, finally reciprocate, but they don't. And the cycle repeats. Different person, same pattern, different relationship, same ending. Does this sound familiar? Here's the thing, and I need you to really hear this. It's not about finding the right person. It's not about working on your communication. It's not even about self-worth, though everyone will tell you it is. It's about a quantum principle you've been violating your entire life without knowing it. Let me explain. In the quantum field, the invisible ocean of potential that surrounds you right now, there's a law, not a rule, not a suggestion. A law as precise as gravity, and it's this: excess potential always gets eliminated. What's excess potential? It's the gap between how you see something and what it actually is. It's the difference between your evaluation and reality. The moment you create that gap, the moment you put someone on a pedestal, the moment you need them to complete you, the moment you assign them more importance than they actually have, you create potential. And the quantum field? It hates potential because potential is imbalance, and nature, the universe, reality itself, it moves toward equilibrium, always. So it sends balancing forces, forces whose only job is to remove that excess potential, to collapse the gap, to bring you back to reality. And here's the brutal truth. Balancing forces don't care about your happiness. They don't care about your intentions. They care about one thing: eliminating the distortion you've created. So when you idealize someone, when you need them, when your love becomes a dependency, you create massive excess potential. And the balancing forces show up, not to punish you, but to restore balance. And the way they do that? They ensure that person never loves you back. Because the moment they did, the potential would remain. The imbalance would stabilize, and nature cannot allow that. So here's my question for you, and really sit with this. How many times have you loved someone not as they are, but as you needed them to be? How many times have you turned a human being into a solution to your emptiness? Because here's what no one talks about. This isn't just bad luck. This isn't a string of wrong people. This is a frequency you're radiating into the quantum field. And that field, it's a mirror. It reflects back precisely what you're broadcasting. Let me tell you a story that changed everything for me. There was a writer, Karl May, German, early 1900s. He wrote adventure novels about the American Wild West, cowboys, Native Americans, epic journeys. And his readers? They worshipped him. They believed he'd lived these adventures, that he was this worldly, experienced explorer who'd seen it all. Karl May became an idol, a hero. His readers created this image of who he was: brave, wise, authentic. They poured their idealization into him. They assigned him value far beyond what he actually possessed. And then the truth came out. Karl May had never been to America. He'd written everything from his imagination. From his desk in Germany, he was a fraud, not maliciously, just a storyteller who let people believe a myth. And you know what happened? Those same fans who'd worshipped him, they turned on him. Overnight, they became his worst enemies. The more they'd idealized him, the more viciously they attacked him when reality revealed itself. Why? Because balancing forces removed the excess potential they'd created. The gap between their evaluation and reality was too great. And when nature corrects an imbalance, it doesn't do it gently. It swings the pendulum all the way back. This is exactly what happens in your relationships. You meet someone, you don't see them clearly, you see potential, you see what they could be, what you need them to be. You create an image, an ideal, and you fall in love with that. But here's the devastating part. The quantum field knows the difference between love and idealization, and it responds accordingly. Real love, unconditional love, creates no excess potential. Because it sees clearly, it accepts what is, it requires nothing, it's simply on is. But idealization, that creates a mountain of potential. Because you're evaluating something as more important than it actually is. You're creating a gap between your perception and reality. And that gap has to close. So the universe sends balancing forces, and those forces ensure that the person you've idealized never becomes what you need them to be. They pull back, they disappoint you, they show you again and again that they're not the solution you made them into. Not because the universe is cruel, but because it's precise. Here's another principle, and this one is going to sting. You always get what you cannot stand. Let me explain. If you despise alcoholics, if you judge them, look down on them, create contempt around them, you're radiating on the frequency of alcoholism. You're putting energy into that concept. You're thinking about it, feeling about it, creating excess potential around it. And what does the quantum field do? It brings you closer to what you're radiating. You might marry an alcoholic, you might become one yourself, you might find yourself surrounded by that very thing you cannot stand. This isn't karma. It's not punishment, it's frequency. You radiate contempt towards something and you entangle yourself with it. Because in the language of energy, attention is connection. Where your focus goes, energy flows. And what you judge, you become bound to. So all those qualities you can't stand in people, all those traits you look down on, you're not repelling them, you're magnetizing them. And in relationships, this shows up as a particularly cruel pattern. You idealize, you create an image of the perfect partner, someone who's everything you need. And what do you attract? The opposite. Because you've created such strong excess potential around what you want that the balancing forces bring you what you don't want. To collapse the gap, to remove the potential, it's like holding an empty picture frame and demanding the universe fill it with a specific painting. But the universe doesn't work on demands, it works on frequency. And your frequency isn't perfect partner, your frequency is desperate need. So that's what shows up, people who reflect your desperation back to you. But here's where it gets even deeper. This didn't start with your last relationship, or the one before that. This started long before you knew what love was. Let me ask you something. When you were a child, what did you have to do to receive love? Did you have to be good, be quiet, be perfect, achieve something, make your parents proud? Or was love just there? No conditions, no performance, no earning it. For most of you watching this, especially if you've been drawn to this content, love came with conditions, maybe subtle, maybe obvious, but always conditional. If you do this, then I'll love you. If you're good, then you're worthy. If you succeed, then you matter. And you learned that love is something you earn, something you perform for, something that depends on you being a certain way. You learned conditional love, and here's the tragedy. That's the only kind of love you know how to give, because you can't give what you never received. You can't model what you never witnessed. So now, as an adult, you enter relationships with a fundamental misunderstanding. You believe love is transactional. You believe it requires conditions. You believe you have to do something, be something, give something to deserve it, and you create dependent relationships. If I'm there for you, then you'll love me. If I give you everything, then you'll stay. If I'm perfect enough, then you'll choose me. Every if then is a contract, an exchange, a dependency. And dependencies? They create massive excess potential because you're saying the other person's love is more valuable than reality. You're assigning importance based on your need, not on what actually is. And balancing forces cannot allow that, so they ensure your conditions are never met. They ensure the contract fails. They ensure the love you're desperately trying to earn remains just out of reach. not because you're unworthy, but because you've set up an energetic structure that guarantees failure. Here's the uncomfortable truth, and I say this with all the compassion in the world. You've been creating the very rejection you're trying to avoid. Your childhood taught you that love requires performance. So you perform, you give, you sacrifice, you mold yourself into what you think will finally earn love. But every time you do that, you're creating excess potential. You're saying, I'm not enough as I am. I need to be more, do more, give more to be worthy. And the universe hears that, not your words, your frequency, and it responds to your frequency. So if your frequency is I'm not enough, the universe brings you people who confirm that. Not to hurt you, but to match what you're broadcasting. This is where most people break down. This is where the tears come, because you realize it's not that you're unlovable. It's that you've been trying to earn something that can never be earned. Real love doesn't work on conditions, and that's exactly why yours has never been reciprocated. Ready to go deeper? Because this is where most people stop. They recognize the pattern, they see the trap, but they don't understand why their attempts to fix it make everything worse. So you have this realization. You see the pattern. You understand you've been approaching love the wrong way. And you do what everyone does. You try to fix yourself. You go to therapy. You read self-help books. You work on your self-esteem. You do the inner child work. You journal. You meditate. You affirm to yourself every morning, I am worthy. I am enough. I am deserving of love. And you genuinely believe that if you just work hard enough on yourself, if you just heal enough, if you just become secure enough, then love will finally work, right? Here's what happens next. You meet someone new. And this time you're determined to do it differently. You're not going to be needy. You're not going to idealize them. You're going to be secure, grounded, independent. You tell yourself, I don't need them. I'm complete on my own. And you start the relationship with all this awareness, all this work you've done, all this healing you've achieved. But then something shifts. Maybe they pull back slightly. Maybe they don't text as quickly. Maybe they seem distant one evening. And suddenly all that work you did, it evaporates. The anxiety floods back. The need returns. You're right back in the pattern, wondering if you did something wrong, analyzing every interaction, desperately trying to figure out how to make them love you, and you think, I failed. I didn't work on myself enough. I need to heal more. So you do more therapy, more journaling, more affirmations, more work, and the cycle repeats. Let me tell you something that's going to sound counterintuitive, maybe even controversial. Working on yourself is not the solution to this problem, not in the way you've been doing it. Because here's what no one tells you. Every time you try to fix your neediness, every time you try to eliminate your insecurity, every time you fight your attachment patterns, you're creating more excess potential. Let me explain why. When you decide I need to not be needy, what are you doing? You're evaluating neediness as bad. You're creating a judgment. You're saying, this part of me is unacceptable and I need to get rid of it. That judgment, that's excess potential. Because now there's a gap between how you are and how you think you should be. And that gap requires energy to maintain, constant vigilance, constant effort, constant control. You're trying to not be something, which means you're focused on that thing. Your attention is on it. Your energy is flowing to it. And remember, where your attention goes, energy flows. What you resist persists. What you fight against, that grows stronger. So the more you try to eliminate your neediness, the needier you become. The more you try to not care, the more you care. The more you try to be secure, the more insecure you feel. It's exhausting, isn't it? You're like a fly beating against a window, trying desperately to get through the glass. You can see freedom on the other side, but the window is invisible, so you keep trying, harder, faster, more frantically. But there's an open window right next to you, and you'll never find it as long as you're fixated on the closed one. That's what fighting your flaws is like. Trying to eliminate what you don't like about yourself. Trying to force yourself to be different. It doesn't work. It can't work, because it violates the quantum principle. But here's where it gets worse. Let me show you exactly how this plays out, and I want you to see if you recognize yourself in this. Imagine you're shy. You've always been shy, and you've decided shyness is a problem. It holds you back. It keeps you from connecting with people, so you need to fix it. What do? You force yourself to be outgoing. You go to social events. You initiate conversations. You act confident even though every cell in your body is screaming at you to retreat. And you know what happens? Your shyness becomes more obvious. Because you're acting unnaturally. You're performing a role that doesn't fit. And people can feel it. They sense the incongruence, the gap between who you're pretending to be and who you actually are. So they pull back. They feel uncomfortable around you. Not because you're shy, but because you're pretending not to be. This is balancing forces in action. The more you try to hide your shyness, the more it gets highlighted. The more you try to eliminate it, the more it dominates your presence. The excess potential you've created around "I shouldn't be shy" gets corrected by the universe, making your shyness impossible to ignore. Or take another example, low self-esteem. You decide you need to boost your confidence. So you start acting more assertive, you speak up more, you put yourself forward, you try to take up space. But inside, you don't actually feel confident. You're performing confidence, and that performance requires constant energy, constant effort. It's exhausting, and eventually you slip. You can't maintain it, and when you do, the crash is even worse than before. Because now you've proven to yourself that you can't even fake it properly, and this is the trap. The more you fight your flaws, the more power you give them. The more you try to eliminate what you don't like about yourself, the more it becomes the defining feature of your existence. Why? Because you've created excess potential around it. Let me show you what love looks like through this lens, because this is where it gets really confronting. You meet someone, and in the beginning it's beautiful. You admire them, you're drawn to them, you feel something real. But then, imperceptibly, it shifts. You stop seeing them as they are. You start seeing them as you need them to be. You create an ideal, an image of who they are, what they represent, what they could give you. You're in that flower valley. The flowers are beautiful. You feel joy looking at them. That's love. But then you think, I want to keep this feeling forever. So you pick a flower. You take it home. You put it in a vase. You try to preserve it. But it wilts because you've removed it from its source. You've tried to possess it, so you pick more flowers, you dry them, you press them, you turn them into potpourri, perfume decorations. You surround yourself with these dead flowers, these fragments of what was once beautiful. And you call that love. But it's not love. It's idealization. It's possession. It's the attempt to own something that can only exist freely. Real love, it would have left the flowers in the valley. It would have returned to see them. It would have enjoyed them without needing to possess them. That's the difference. Love is passionless in its essence. Not passionless, but without the need to possess. Unconditional love is a feeling without the right of ownership. It's admiration without worship. But the love you've been taught, the conditional, transactional love you learned in childhood, that creates dependence. If you love me, then I'll love you. If you stay, then I'll be happy. If you complete me, then I'll be whole. Every "if" then creates excess potential, because you're making their love more important than it actually is. You're saying they have the power to determine your worth, your happiness, your wholeness. And balancing forces cannot allow that power dynamic to exist, so they remove it. They ensure the other person pulls back. They ensure your conditions aren't met. They ensure you experience exactly what you're desperately trying to avoid. Not to hurt you, but to show you that the structure itself is flawed. You can't build love on conditions. You can't create connection through dependence. You can't earn unconditional love, and every time you try, you create more potential, more imbalance, more for the universe to correct. So here's the paradox that breaks most people. If you want your love to be reciprocated, you have to stop trying to be loved. Read that again, because it sounds impossible. It sounds like spiritual bypassing or toxic positivity or some kind of ridiculous paradox designed to make you feel bad. But it's not. It's quantum mechanics. The moment you need someone to love you back, you create excess potential. Your need becomes an energetic demand on reality, and reality pushes back, always. The moment you make their love more important than anything else, you create a dependency. And dependencies create imbalance. And imbalance gets corrected. So the solution, the real solution, isn't to work harder on being worthy. It isn't to become more attractive, more interesting, more lovable. The solution is to love without needing to be loved. And I know what you're thinking. That's impossible. That's not human. How am I supposed to just turn off my need for reciprocation? You're right. You can't turn it off. You can't eliminate it. Because that would be creating more excess potential around it. But here's what you can do. And this is where everything shifts. You can recognize that your need for their love is creating the exact opposite of what you want. Your desperation is broadcasting a frequency. I'm incomplete. I need you to fill this void. Please love me so I can feel whole. And the quantum field reflects that back. You're incomplete. You need external validation. You're not whole on your own. So it brings you people who confirm that. People who don't reciprocate. People who take your love and give nothing back. People who reflect your own belief about yourself. The answer isn't to fight that belief. It isn't to affirm the opposite until you believe it. It isn't to force yourself to be independent when you don't feel independent. The answer is simpler and more terrifying. You have to let go, not of the person, not of the desire for love, but of the right of possession, the right to demand reciprocation, the right to make their love a condition of your wholeness. You have to love freely, without contracts, without expectations, without the need for them to complete you. And here's what makes this so terrifying. It feels like giving up. It feels like resignation. It feels like you're saying, I don't matter, my needs don't matter. But that's not what this is. This is recognizing that your happiness cannot depend on another person's actions. Not because you don't deserve love, but because making it dependent creates the exact energetic structure that prevents love from flowing. Think about it. When have you felt most attractive? Most magnetic? Most alive? Was it when you were desperately seeking validation? Or was it when you were complete in yourself, enjoying life, not needing anything from anyone? Unconditional love is rare, extremely rare. And because it's rare, it's intriguing, it's magnetic, it draws people in. Not because you're performing independence, but because you genuinely don't need them to complete you. You're already whole. And from that wholeness, you can offer love without demands. That's what the quantum field responds to. That's what collapses the wave in your favor. But to get there, you need to understand something most people never learn. Here's what's actually happening at the quantum level. And once you see this, you can't unsee it. Reality isn't solid. It's not fixed. It's a field of infinite potential that collapses into form based on observation. You've probably heard about the observer effect, the quantum physics principle that shows particles behave differently when they're being observed. But here's what they don't tell you in science class. You're the observer of your own life, of your relationships, of your reality. And the way you observe, the frequency you hold, the beliefs you carry, the potential you create, that determines what collapses into form. When you look at someone and see them as essential to your happiness, you're observing them through the lens of excess potential. You're collapsing the quantum wave in a way that creates imbalance. And nature abhors imbalance, so balancing forces enter. Not as punishment, as correction. They bring situations, circumstances, and behaviors that restore equilibrium. If you've made someone more important than they actually are, the balancing forces make them less available. If you've created a dependency, they create distance. If you've idealized, they reveal flaws. This is why the harder you try, the worse it gets. Because trying harder equals more potential, more evaluation, more demand on reality, and more for the universe to correct. But here's where it gets beautiful, and this is the shift that changes everything. When you love without possession, you create no excess potential. Think about this. When you look at a sunset, do you need to own it to enjoy it? When you hear beautiful music, do you need to possess the sound waves to feel moved? No. You experience beauty without demanding anything from it. You appreciate without attaching. You love without needing reciprocation. That's unconditional love, and it creates zero excess potential. Because there's no gap between your evaluation and reality. There's no demand, no dependency, no condition that needs to be met. You're simply observing beauty and feeling appreciation. That's it. Now imagine applying that to relationships. You see someone. You appreciate who they are. You enjoy their presence. You love them, not as a solution to your emptiness, but as an expression of your fullness. There's no "if you love me back, then." There's no contract, no exchange, no condition, just love, freely given, with no strings attached. What does the quantum field do with that? It has nothing to correct. There's no imbalance, no excess potential. So balancing forces don't need to intervene. And something strange happens. The very thing you stop demanding and starts flowing toward you, not because you manipulated the universe, not because you played it cool, but because you removed the energetic obstruction you'd been creating. Love without the right of possession is magnetic, because it's so rare, because it's so free, because it doesn't require anything. And paradoxically, that's exactly what makes people want to give to you, but to actually live this, you need to understand how to work with your actual reality. Not fight it, not eliminate it, but compensate for it. Let me show you what I mean. Here's the principle that changes everything. Compensation, not elimination. You're not trying to get rid of your flaws. You're not trying to become someone different. You're learning to work with what is rather than fighting against it. Let me give you examples of what this looks like. If you're not conventionally beautiful, you don't spend your life trying to force yourself to be attractive in that way. You develop charm, humor, depth, presence. You compensate for one thing by developing another. If you're naturally shy, you don't force yourself to become loud and outgoing. You develop the art of listening, of deep one-on-one connection, of creating safe spaces where others open up. You turn what seems like a weakness into a hidden strength. If you have physical limitations, you don't pretend they don't exist. You develop other capacities. Mental strength, emotional intelligence, creative expression. This is how nature works. A tree that grows on a cliff, battered by wind, develops stronger roots. A plant in shade grows wider leaves to capture more light. Nature compensates, it doesn't eliminate. And your nature too. So when it comes to relationships, when it comes to this need for reciprocation, the answer isn't to eliminate the need. It's to compensate for it. How? By developing self-sufficiency. Not as a performance, not as "I don't need anyone" bravado, but as genuine enjoyment of your own company, genuine appreciation for your own life, genuine completeness that doesn't require external validation to exist. Here's a practice that changed my entire relationship with this. Treat yourself like a guest. You know how you treat guests? With respect, with attention, with care. You offer them freedom of choice. You don't demand anything from them. You don't try to control them, but you also don't let them walk all over you. You maintain boundaries. That's how you should treat yourself. Most people raised with conditional love learn to treat themselves like servants, like tools to achieve external approval. Work harder, be better, sacrifice more. Maybe then you'll be worthy. But what if you treated yourself like an honored guest in your own life? You'd listen to your needs. You'd respect your boundaries. You'd offer yourself freedom without abandonment. You'd be attentive without being controlling. And here's what happens when you do this. You stop radiating desperation. You stop broadcasting "please fill my void." Instead, you radiate contentment, completeness, self-sufficiency. And people feel that. They're drawn to it because it's so rare. But, and this is crucial, you're not doing this to attract anyone. You're not performing self-sufficiency to manipulate someone into loving you, because that would just be creating more excess potential. You're doing this because it's the only way to actually be free. Here's another shift. Stop evaluating people. When you meet someone, you immediately start evaluating. Are they good enough? Are they the one? Do they meet my criteria? Can they give me what I need? Every evaluation creates potential. Every judgment creates a gap between your perception and reality. What if you just observed, without evaluating, without judging, without making them more or less than they are? Just see them as they are, with curiosity instead of assessment, with appreciation instead of analysis. When you do this, something shifts. You stop creating the excess potential that pushes people away. You stop triggering the balancing forces that ensure non-reciprocation. And people feel safe around you because they're not being evaluated. They're not being made into something they're not. They can just be. That's magnetic. That's rare. That's what unconditional love actually feels like. But here's the part most people struggle with. This requires you to face your emptiness, the void you've been trying to fill with other people, the incompleteness you've been trying to solve through relationships. You can't skip this step. You can't bypass it with affirmations or manifestation techniques or positive thinking. You have to actually sit with the truth. You've been using people to avoid feeling your own emptiness. And that emptiness, it's not something to fix, it's not something to fill, it's something to recognize as the very space where transformation happens. Because when you stop trying to fill the void, when you stop using relationships as anesthesia for your discomfort, when you actually face yourself, that's when you become whole. Not because you've achieved anything, not because you've healed everything, but because you've stopped fragmenting yourself by depending on others to complete you. And from that wholeness, messy, imperfect, but real, you can finally love without possession. You can finally offer your presence without demanding reciprocation. And that's when everything changes. Here's what happens when you love without the right of possession. First, you stop exhausting yourself, because you're no longer trying to earn something that can't be earned. You're not performing. You're not monitoring every interaction for signs of reciprocation. You're not analyzing whether you're doing it right. You're just present, loving freely, offering what you can offer without attachment to outcome. And that's deeply peaceful, even if the love isn't reciprocated, because your peace doesn't depend on their response. Second, you become genuinely attractive, not in a superficial way, but in an energetic way, because people can feel when you're not needy. They can feel when you're complete in yourself. They can feel when they're not carrying the burden of completing you. And that's intriguing. That's magnetic. That's what makes someone think, who is this person who doesn't need anything from me? Third, paradoxically, you often receive the very reciprocation you stopped demanding. Not always from the person you originally wanted it from. Sometimes the universe surprises you, but it flows toward you because you're no longer creating the energetic obstruction the quantum field can finally deliver. Because you're not creating excess potential. You're not triggering balancing forces. You're in alignment. But here's what I want you to understand. This isn't a technique to get someone to love you. This isn't a manipulation. This isn't play hard to get, rebranded with quantum physics. This is a fundamental shift in how you relate to reality, how you relate to yourself, how you understand love. You're not doing this to get a result. You're doing this because it's the only way to be free. It's the only way to love authentically. It's the only way to break the pattern you've been trapped in your entire life. And yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it requires you to face things you've been avoiding. Yes, it means letting go of the familiar pattern of needing and pursuing and trying to earn love. But on the other side of that discomfort, freedom. Real freedom. The freedom to love without fear, to connect without clinging, to appreciate without possessing. That's what unconditional love actually is. And it's not some spiritual ideal you'll never reach. It's a practice, a daily choice, a moment-by-moment recalibration of how you show up. So here's my question for you, and this is the question that determines everything. Are you willing to love freely? Even if it means not getting what you want? Even if it means facing your emptiness? Even if it means letting go of the very pattern that's defined your relationships your entire life? Because if you're genuinely ready to break free from the love trap, then everything I've shared today becomes more than information. It becomes transformation, and that transformation starts right now. Now, this is video 13 in the Reality Transurfing series, and if you thought understanding why your love isn't reciprocated was confronting, what we're exploring in video 14 will show you something even deeper. Because there's a reason the more you want something, the harder it becomes to get. There's a reason the moment you call something important, it slips through your fingers. And there's a hidden force sabotaging every goal you've ever set. It's not what you think. And once you see it, you'll understand why guilt is the most dangerous form of excess potential you can create. If something shifted in you today, if you felt seen in a way that's rare, hit that subscribe button. Drop one word in the comments that captures where you are right now. The full playlist and video 14 are linked in the description. This is just the beginning of understanding how reality actually works. I'll see you in the next one.